This video is part of the Dance from the Core series and addresses proper and healthy standing alignment in dance. Proper and healthy standing alignment includes a lengthened spine, engaged and strong core, and a neutral pelvis. In addition to this, you need to have lengthened hip flexors as well as lengthened hamstrings to make sure that your pelvis can maintain a neutral position. If you begin to make a habit of starting each class or activity with these cautions, you'll be well on your way to achieving really good dance technique. When we apply these strategies in dance for standing alignment, we want to make a mind-body connection. Our mind connects to what our body does, and that's what makes dance an art form, because there is thought and meaning in our movement. We're not just walking down the street, we're walking with thought, and that's what makes it dance as art. By connecting the mind with the body, we can achieve much higher levels of technical performance, choreographic material, and connection with the audience. You'd see this demonstrate in high-level athletes in the Olympics, where the athletes really connect with their mind before they begin moving to get the highest level of performance. When we integrate interconnectivity to outer expressivity, it becomes much more meaningful and almost therapeutic, like you might use in meditation and yoga. We want to prepare ourselves mentally and physically to dance, again, by taking deep cleansing breaths and lengthening the spine, engaging the core, and maintaining a neutral pelvis. It's like a dancer or an artist starting with a project with a blank canvas. We're starting with a blank canvas as a dancer. Here's some images that help you understand the importance of a lengthened spine. The image on the left, you can see she has increased curves of her spine and she's slouching over. The middle image has two blocks, top and bottom, that have a more fixed imagery, and the image on the far right has more of a mobile or a alignment that is more active. If you look at the diagrams on the right and answer these questions, which do you feel most closely resembles your own alignment? Start to be mindful about what your alignment is, how you move, how you walk, how you stand, how you sit. Which figure do you think has the best standing alignment and or posture? You might automatically go to figure E, but in reality it's figure A, because that figure is maintaining the curves of the spine, which is important for healthy alignment. Which figure do you think has the most belly fat? We really don't know. Figure C might appear to be, but because they're not engaged in their core, we really can't tell. Which figure do you think might have lower back problems and why? Well, if I were to venture a guess, I'd say B, C, and D, and E might all develop lower back problems. Here's some other figures. You can look at the arrows to help us analyze the differences between figure A and B. Figure A on the left, all the arrows are going down. They have increased curves of the spine. If you look at the tail in figure A, you can see that is lifted. The pelvis is tilted forward, and there's greatly increased curve of the spine here, and you can see that that could be a problem with the lower back. Figure B looks like it has really nice dynamic alignment, and there's a spring in that symbolizes the imagery that we want to think of our spine as a spring or a shock absorber. Notice how the tail is dropped here too. Nice drop tail, level pelvis, aligned pelvis, lengthened spine. The curves of the spine serve as shock absorbers as we run, walk, and move. So if we just had a straight spine, there would be no give as we land. So those curves are critical to maintaining health in the spine, to prevent injury and maintain mobility. Sitting up with the straight back is not a healthy mind-body image, and we want to get rid of that. It's what our grandmothers used to say. No more sitting with the straight back. And we want to maintain a healthy spine and strong core to give us more mobility and a greater range of motion. And it also helps with getting that good technical skill in dance. A weak core or tight hip flexors can result in a weak lumbar spine. Okay, we asked ourselves, why did grandma shrink? Well, it could be age, it could be osteoporosis, or these weak abdominals you can see here. That's why we need to remain active in our old age. Some people think this is how a dancer should stand. But as you can see, with these increased curves of the spine come many, many problems. And in fact, dancers don't stand with an increased curve of the spine. It may seem that way because they're lifted and lengthened. So, what comes first? A lengthened spine, an engaged core, or a neutral pelvis? Really depends on the individual, but we need all three working together to achieve proper standing alignment. Some people may need to work more on their core, some on their spine, some on their belly. You really need to analyze and be mindful of your own posture and make adjustments as needed. Another thing we need to be careful of is that if you have tight hip flexors or tight hamstrings, that may prevent your pelvis from getting into a neutral position. So flexibility is critical as well. So now we're going to go back to the same image. Let's look at it in relation to a core this time instead of a spine. So as you can see, each one of them is engaging their core in a different way. Your core is not your stomach, but is referred to as your abdominal muscles. And your core is located about 3 inches below your navel and towards your spine. It greatly affects your technical ability and your expertise. And it also affects how we're perceived by others. So, which figure do you think looks lazy? I might say figure C. Which figure do you think looks a little bit snooty? I might say figure B or figure D. So how you stand and align your body is how you're perceived by others, and we have to be very mindful and careful of that. So now we're going to go on to the core and the muscle groups of the core. There are layers of core muscles, 4 layers of core muscles. The deepest are the transverse. Then we have the internal obliques, then the external obliques, and finally the most superficial layer of muscles are the rectus abdominis, which are more commonly known as the six-pack. If you were twisting your spine, you would use the internal obliques and the external obliques and the transverse abdominis. If you were bending forward, you would use your rectus abdominis. And if you wanted to target all of these muscles, you wouldn't just do a typical crunch. You would twist and you would spiral, and you would move in as many different planes as ways as possible. This is an interesting image. It shows the layers. So here we have the deepest layer, which is the transverse. Then the next layer, which are the internal obliques, the external obliques, and the rectus abdominis, or the six-pack. This image demonstrates the lines of pull, that the muscles, when they contract, they get smaller, and when they release, they get longer, and when they stretch, they get even longer. So these muscles pull in many different ways. And this image shows us how they wrap all the way around your body. These muscles in red are the rectus abdominis and the six-pack. People put so much emphasis on that, but you can see that in fact it's a very small area. It may be defined on the anterior portion of the body, but the rest of the muscles are really what are the workhorses, and look how they wrap all the way around the body. You almost want to think of it as a Chinese finger trap. You're pulling and you're lengthening, and the center of the finger trap gets tight, and then when you release it, it gets loose. This figure shows the complexity of the muscles when you twist and spiral. So there are so many muscles at play. We want to be a three-dimensional dancer. Key to a strong and active engaged core is engage all levels of the core, explore all lines of pull, take a risk and fall down. That's why you have those physio balls. They make your body so smart. Twist and spiral. Think three-dimensionally. Now we're going to talk about the neutral pelvis and the position of the pelvis in dance. The figure on the left, you can see, has a tilted pelvis, and the figure on the right has a tucked pelvis. The way we can tell that is the tilted pelvis has increased curves of the spine, and the tucked pelvis, the spine is decreased. Remember, we want to maintain some curves of the spine because they provide shock absorption and spring in our back. Notice how this tail is lifted and this tail is tucked. So we want to make sure that our tail is dropped. It's not lifted or tucked, it's dropped. And then notice how the anterior iliac spine here is dropped forward and this one is lifted. Think of your pelvis as a bowl of fish or water, and if you're tilted, all the fish and the water drop out to the front. And if you're tucked, all the water spills out the back. And if it's neutral like we want, then it just maintains a level. We don't spill any water or fish. Another thing we want to take into consideration are our sitting bones. Sitting bones should be dropped. We want to visualize that they connect to the heels. Again, it's a little test. Which figure demonstrates a tucked pelvis? Tucked pelvis is figure B. And a tilted pelvis is figure C. And a neutral pelvis is figure A. That's the one we want. It's almost like a puppy. This is a happy puppy wagging its tail. This is a sad, sick puppy. And this is just a neutral puppy, an everyday puppy. Again, we want to make it a habit of every time we stand to get ready for dance, we want to think of these three factors for safe and healthy standing alignment. If you get it in your motor memory, you'll just do it every time without thinking about it. Lengthen spine, engage core, neutral pelvis, and maintaining lengthened hip flexors and hamstrings. Teachers use different imagery to help students connect with their body in many different ways. And that's why it's so great to take from so many different teachers, because they might say it in a way that connects with you and makes sense to you. But there are images out there that aren't really proper, and we want to get them out of our vocabulary. So instead of thinking tuck your butt or tail, we want to think drop your tail. Instead of thinking standing up straight, we want to think lengthening your spine. Instead of thinking suck in your gut, we want to think engage your core. So that's the end of this video. Please read this slide to make sure that you turn in your assignment on time and properly. It gives you specific directions. And I will talk to you again soon. Have a good day.